My name is Jehsi. I was born in December 24, 1940. My father's name is Yehuda. My mom's name is Serena, short for Sarah, like your name.
So why don't you tell me about where your parents were born and if there's any stories of their lives of living in Yemen from their childhood, of being Jewish, if there's anything that stands out to you of stories they told you or things about their identity.
My father came to Israel in 1922 and he was born in 1909, and when he came with three more friends, 3 or 4 I think, and they were a little older than him. He was the youngest, and in order to come to Israel they didn't let him come by himself or his friends, so they joined family from Israel, some families, and they lied that they're sons, my father and his friends. So they got together with that family, and as they walked from Israel, from Yemen, sorry, they walked to Eden, to Aden in Hebrew, and from there they took a boat, and they were waiting for a boat to be available, small boat, and they arrived to Jaffa, Yafo in Hebrew. When they arrived there, they had nothing, and they slept on the street practically. And then somebody found them, an old man, was a Yemenite. He said, "What are you doing here?" Because they split from that family. And they said, "No, we just arrived." They told him the story. He said, "I'll take you with me." They took them, that person took them to Tiberias. He was living there. So they stayed there for a while. They worked in a kibbutz here and there, just to make ends meet. And then someone told my father that there is a job in Petah Tikva, they call it Machane Yehuda. So he went there somehow, I don't remember how he went there. And he started to work in a place that they make cheese, I think. And he was a very good worker, really good worker. I guess he wanted to stay in Israel, of course, and he made few dollars, and then he moved to Tel Aviv. I don't remember where in Tel Aviv. Then he got married with my mom. They moved to Jerusalem for a while, and my father was working in Jerusalem, making blocks, cement blocks, day and night. And from there, after a while, I think 2 or 3 years later, he heard that his sister and with her family came from Yemen. And they was established in Herzliya. That was in 26, something like that, 7. So he moved to Herzliya with them, lived with them. And over there, he didn't know what to do, and what he did, he worked in the orange groves. They used to plant them and watch them and water them. And then my grandfather came too with his sister also, and they worked together. And one family in Herzliya adopted my grandfather, and he was living there, taking care of the cows, taking care of their orange groves. He worked there like part of the family. And my father, like I said, moved to Herzliya, and they built a small house, out of wood, and they built it with 2 big rooms. One room for him, and one room for his brother, which was a brother only from his mother, not father. It was 2 different last names. So they stayed there for a while. My father he came up with an idea to make a falafel. So he built himself a small, like a shape with wheels. He moved it to the center of Herzliya, which was, at that time, was like a town, Moshava. Wasn't a town yet, like a small city, because they just started Israel, in those days, Herzliya. So he started to sell falafel during the day, like in the evening time, and during the day he used to work at the orange groves. And then he became, in that field, he became a carpenter, and he used to build the boxes to put the oranges in and ship them to all over the world, to Haifa, and from there they used to take a boat to, export that.
So to go back a little bit, do you know why your father left Yemen?
Well, because in those days they say that, there's Israel, there's a Jerusalem, there's a real, they never believed that, in those days, but they used to come like a delegation of people to Yemen and tell them, listen, Israel exists, let's come to Israel, just like you pray every day, next year in Jerusalem, let's go. And a lot of people didn't believe it, and they were afraid that what's the Arab going to say, because the Jews in Yemen, they were the main sources for the Goyim, for the Muslims, for the Arabs. They were in all types of, trades, They were the main thing in jewelry, as you know. And they worked with leather a lot. They worked with a lot of spices they made. The Arabs, they were behind. They were like they weren't advanced like the Jews. I mean, as much as the country was advanced, but they were like on the top of everything. And so he had the desire to come to see Israel, to finally come and make Aliyah to Israel.
Did your dad have religious freedom, or did he experience anti-Semitism? Do you know what the relationship was like between the Arabs and the Jews in Yemen? Was it
Yes,
good?
well, first of all the kids that they had no parents, they became Muslim. They took them and they made the Muslims out of them. That's why every time when they had kids with no parents, some other family used to adopt them, said, no, this is my son. And there's no paper, no proof. If they say it's their son, it's their son. And when my father came to Israel, he was like without parents. What the question was exactly?
What the relationship between the Muslims and the Jews in Yemen? If the Muslims rioted, if they killed the Jews, or if they were tolerant of them?
Well, from what I'm reading now, 10, 20 years ago, there was some rioting, but not in the time when my father came. It was a little bit, but it was a lot of love between the Jews and the Arab, because they need each other. That's the purpose. But I remember, I read not too long ago, as a matter of fact, that somebody went to Yemen, it was an article in the paper that when he went there, he went to a place where they sell all the art and jewelry. And the reportman, he was, I think, from Arif, he asked one of the store owners, he said, listen, I need something really, really valuable. And he said, you want to know something? Since the Jews left the Yemen, there is no such a valuable stuff. Whichever you see, this is what we got. But something really, really good, it's over. It was many, many years ago. So right there you can tell.
Was your father's family religious, observant?
He was. See, the Yemenite people, they either they're religious or they're not. Every one of them was religious, absolutely.
Do you know about your grandfather, your father's father, what he did for work and what it was like for him to go to Israel?
My grandfather, what he used to do, he used to travel from town to town for like week, 2 weeks at a time, and he used to sell spices. And he used to sell also nuts and dates, and, all kinds of like dry fruits. And he used to go from town to town. There was no money exchange, very little. And he used to bring stuff like a barter they used to do. He used to give them dates and peanuts and nuts, and they used to get something else from them, like eggs and chickens. That was his job.
What language did the Jews speak in Yemen?
They spoke Yemenite language. It was a Yemenite language. But it wasn't like the Arabic, the native, the Muslim. It was like, for example, the Yiddish, it's a little bit of German, a little bit this, a little bit that. That's how it's the Yemenite language, the Yemenis language is. And plus, because they used to read the Torah and they used to pray, they spoke Hebrew also.
So I've read places that in Yemen and even Yemenite Jews today, they would teach their children how to read from the Torah when they were like 3 years old, and that by the time the children were like 6 and 7 years old, they could just like recite the Torah. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, you see, in Yemen, they didn't have any other thing but study the Torah. That's all they had. I mean, they didn't never study history, geography, math. They studied Torah. That's what they had. So every book they had, either the Tanakh, which is the Torah, or the Ketuvim, which is the prophets' books and all that. That's all they had. That's all this, and they didn't have a lot of books. They have only very few books. And amazingly, they knew how they had a book, one in the center of the table, and they had kids all the way around. They could read from all the angles. They study it so much, and they memorize it. And we can read upside down, also. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Was the Jewish community very tight-knit? Did everyone live in the same neighborhood in Yemen? Like, was there a Jewish quarter?
I think they were very tight because the fact that a lot of towns, they were far away from each other. And they walk, and they took donkeys and camels, not too much, but donkeys. They were walking from place to place. They used to take them like 2, 3, 4 days. And some area was so far that they used to marry within themselves. And you can tell, they took that from the Bible. I mean, Rebecca, her brother, Laban, his daughters would marry Jacob, the cousins. So they took that and as evidence, and they took that as a proof that we can marry cousins. Every once in a while they used to go to a different town, that when people used to travel, they know, oh, there is a shidduch here, shidduch there, but mostly they did it between themselves.
What about your mother? Was she born in Yemen?
My mother was born in Jerusalem.
Was her family from Yemen?
My mother's mother was born in Jerusalem too.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather, her father, came from Yemen, but he went to Egypt and he stayed there like 10 years he stayed there. But they came to Israel in 1988, to Jerusalem.
1888.
I'm sorry, 1888,
Yeah.
yes.
So I don't want to jump too much, but I don't want to forget to ask this question. So you grew up as a Yemenite Jewish man inside Israel, or Israeli.
Absolutely. Yes.
And do you remember the Operation Magic Carpet in 1950, and when they brought the remainder of the Jews from Yemen?
I was 8 years old.
Hold on a second.
I was 8 years old, yeah.
Can you talk about any memories you have from that, of all the Jews from Yemen coming? Did you meet any of them? What was that like?
Yeah, it was easy to get together, in other words, to bind together, because we were all Yemenite, And a lot of them was our family that came. It was great. I remember my father's family came from a town by name Rijam in Yemen. Wasn't too far from Sana'a, I think 3-4 days walk. And when they came to Israel, they put most of the family in a town by name Yokneam. You know the place? And they were there right on a mountain over there. And then I remember when they were like a year or two, in the 50s, 51, we went there to see weddings, which I never saw a wedding like that. Because they came with a culture that was so fresh, and they just did exactly what they did in Yemen.
Can you talk about that? What was that culture? What did they do in Yemen? So tell me about like a wedding. How do Yemenite people celebrate a marriage traditionally?
Well, they did it, first of all, what's amazing, for me it was, like they call it in Arabic, rafad. Rafad means like a nedunya. You know what a nedunya is? I say nedunya when a mother gives the bride, she brings
Gives it away?
What?
Gives it away?
No, when she gives stuff to her, like sheets and mattresses and, clothes.
Dowry?
Yeah.
Which?
Like a dowry kind of.
Right. over there, what they do in Yemen, well, in Yokneam, when they came to Yokneam, to Israel, they did it with microphone. Over there, they did it loudly. Somebody, knew how to do, and he had little, not microphone, what's that, the megaphone?
Yeah, yeah.
And they say, like, for example, who wants to donate for the Kalab al-Khatan money? And they say, $2 Kalab al-Khatan. Who said that? Mr. Cohen and his family. That was so funny. And then at the end, they like accumulate 400 or 500, lirot. And those. I was so amazing. I said to my father, how the heck they can do that? See, that's the tradition. They always collect money for them. In Yemen, they used to do that.
Yeah.
And then the henna was amazing, with the song, with the dance, how they put things on the head, with all the put stuff there, the henna and all that. That was amazing. And the dance also. See, the dance in those days, was with like, just like a can. You used to take a square can and...
Yeah, 1 second. I want to interview you too. Will you let me interview you? I just realized that because you do all the dance, that you'd be a great person to interview for this also.
Oh, okay, I do belly dance though.
But you still do like do you know Yemenite dance at all?
Yeah, so does he. He knows it better than I do.
Yeah.
He knows the names of the dance steps.
Oops. So, did you grow up in a Yemenite community in Israel?
Yes, we had a town by the name Shchunat Teimanim in Herzliya. You see, in those days, every time when they have Yemenite in towns, they call it Shchunat Teimanim. Like Machane Yehuda, Shchunat Teimanim, Kerem Teimanim, Herzliya, Shchunat Teimanim. In other places, I think in Tveria also, in Jerusalem they have also, like they have Shchunat Pachim. You ever heard of it?
Mm-mm.
You know what spach means?
Mm-mm.
It's like a can. Square can, this month they used to put all types of, either fruit or vegetable, or some of them had, I think, oil in it and all that. Why they call that? Because when they built that town over there in the community, they took the pachim and they opened them up and they put them on the roof because it was leaks. The roof was leaking.
Yeah.
So they call it Shchunat Pachim.
So what was it like in your community? Were all of your friends Yemenite? Did you go to a Yemenite school? What was it like for you as a child growing up in the...
Not the Yemenite school, but we grew up in a Yemenite town. In other words, it was a small area in the town that's, like I said before, called Shchunat Teimanim, all Yemenites. We were there, I think, 10 families. And Herzliya, the town, the Moshava, they gave us properties. And also they gave us like properties a little bit further to do an agriculture to be like self-sufficient.
So what kind of school did you go to?
We went to school with, they call it Bet Sefer Haredi. It's a religious school. And then on the beginning, I went to Bagan, הייתי שם, it's a kindergarten.
Yeah.
And then I was there, I think, 2 years. And then I went to another school, and I grew up a little bit. They call it Bet Sefer Mizrahi.
What was that?
It wasn't Haredi. Haredi is like ultra-religious. Mizrahi is religious, but, no force. In Haredi, they used to force us to do things, it was very, very religious.
So were your friends mostly Mizrahi? Did you have Ashkenazi friends?
Yeah, of course.
Did you experience any racism as a child?
Yes, a little bit. Yes, I did. But I was so strong, I would overcome it. I didn't pay attention to it. Some friend of mine used to get insulted. But don't forget, in those days, Herzliya was like a moshava, was a small community. You couldn't blame anybody. That's how it was,
Yeah. So what kind of Yemenite traditions did your father keep in the house? Did you eat jachnun on Shabbat? Did you do anything?
Of course. Well, my family, I can't tell you much because my family was separate, because when I was like, I think 2 years old, my father and mother separated, and he married a different woman. So I can't tell you that closeness too much, because I used to live with my uncle 2 years, and then with my grandpa a couple of years, with my sister. So we didn't have that very close family thing, you know.
What was it like for your grandfather to come to Israel? Because I imagine he probably lived for a long time in Yemen and then absorbing into Israel, which is different kind of society. Was it hard for him or easy?
Not really, because don't forget the Yemenite people, they like to work. They do things, you know. They're not like sitting, you know, playing with numbers and pushing pencils. They're workers. So when he came straight to work, thank God that we have work. We can make a living.
What about, oh, your mother you said was born in Jerusalem. Here, I'm gonna look and see. So when you grew up, did you speak Arabic or did you speak Hebrew or both? What languages did you know?
Well, I spoke Hebrew, but with my grandparents I spoke Arabic. I mean, which is Yemenite, not Arabic.
So what are you were born in 1920, you said?
1940.
1940, sorry, excuse me.
I look good for 1940.
So do you remember when Israel was established in the War of Independence and all
Sure.
of that? What are your
My father had, in 1948, 47 actually, he had, remember I told you when he built a falafel, he used to, with a little shop. Later on, I became a little smarter, and he had a restaurant. They call it Misada Mizrachit, like as you know. And he, in those days, were Arabs in Israel, the Palestinians, and they used to live in Herzliya all around. And they used to come and eat at my father's place. And I used to live there with my grandfather and my sister above the bathroom. We used to have like a little balcony, and we built out of wood, big bed, and 3 of us used to sleep there. And in the morning we used to go and work and run the restaurant as much as we can. I used to go to school for half a day, and my sister, she didn't go to school. I think maybe first and second class, but then she worked, she had to work.
So what was it like? What are your memories from the War of Independence? Do you remember?
Oh, and then there I remember in the restaurant, when Israel became independent, 48, was a big party over there. And my father used to entertain people that come from Israel, mainly Romanian. They used to come to Herzliya, to my father's restaurant, used to eat. And a lot of time the town allowed my father some money to feed them, because they came with no family, they came by themselves. Mm-hmm. And I remember one day, about 10 Romanians all of a sudden got killed, because they sent them to the front with guns to protect our town, and they got killed by Arabs passing through. And I felt so bad about it, you know. I didn't know exactly what happened, but later on in years, I knew what happened. Yeah. 10 of them that I saw in a restaurant, I didn't see them the next day. And they told us they got killed.
So can you tell me anything else about the Yemenite, all the different Yemenite communities that you were saying? How did the Yemenite Jews in Israel live differently than any of the other communities? Was there anything that makes them a little bit different, stand out, whether it's food or how they pray or any?
Yeah, you see, for example, the books that we read, or even from the Torah is written different. The words is different. And actually, the Ashkenaz don't accept the Yemenite written Torah. They don't, for them it's not kosher Torah. I remember seeing my father become a rabbi, and he was shochet too. And then I remember when he wanted to, because when people came to Herzliya, where we were, was a big ma'abara, people came from overseas, from Yemen, from Libya, from Morocco, from Tunisia, from Turkey. They came a lot of them to Herzliya. It was a big ma'abara. They built a lot of shades, houses, small houses out of wood and out of asbestos, out of tin cans and all that. They built it in Herzliya, and they were scattered all over behind our house. And my father became shochet. He studied and all that. Who he studied with is a Yemenite rabbi, and he gave him a certificate that he is a shochet. But when he went to the town, they didn't accept him. So what he did, he was a shochet only for the people, the immigrant people. They trusted him, kind of. They said, yes, you are kosher. So that shows you the discrimination between the Ashkenaz and the Yemenite or others too.
Yeah.
They didn't accept their ways.
So do you remember hearing, when you met all these people living in the Mabarot who came from Iraq and from Libya and from all the Arab countries, do you remember hearing stories of why they had to leave or why they came to Israel?
Well, some of them left because I think they were forced to come here. For example, in Iraq, I don't know if you remember that, they planted a bomb in a synagogue. Remember that story?
The Farhud, and also the Farhud too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they forced them to come. And it was a big thing about it. I mean, they made a big stings out of it. And it was like Va'adat Hakira and all this thing. But it happens. Some of them came because they liked to come. Some of them complained when they came to Israel, like the Moroccan. They were complaining, oh, why we left there, this and that, we had a beautiful place. Because the king likes the Jews in those days. But they tried in those days to bring as many Jews to Israel as possible. Don't forget, in those days, I think in Israel was only 800,000 Jews. And then after they came, it became, I think, 1.5 million. Yeah.
So you had Ashkenazi friends when you were growing up?
Of course. Still have, the same ones.
Yeah. And you had how many brothers and sisters?
I have one brother and one sister.
Okay. So, do you know when your father left Yemen and when your grandfather left Yemen, what they left behind, and if they were able to take anything with them?
They didn't take anything. I don't think they were rich or they weren't poor. They were happy. You see, the Yemenite people, they're happy with what they have. Every time they say, thank God, thank God. That's how it was. Even the religious people here, like the Chabad, they say every other word, Toda La'el, thank God, thank God. The Yemenite the same way. They're happy with what they had. Some of them were pretty rich. The one from Sana'a, from the capital of the Yemen, they brought some stuff with them, some gold and this and that and jewelry. But my family, not that much.
So as you grew and you built a life for yourself and you had your own family and now you live in the United States, what from your Yemenite culture do you hold on to and do you hope to pass down to your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren?
Well, what I started to say before, if you remember, I started to say, but my father, he became a rabbi, he was shochet, and he was also sofer stam, he was writing Torahs, and mezuzahs also. So he always wanted me to be a rabbi too. And, it wasn't my thing, And, but he always told me, when you come to the United States, remember, always Shmor Shabbat, Ladlik Narot, Kiddush, Kippah, Hagim, the whole thing.
Yeah.
They really pump into us, the religious, of course.
Yeah. So that's what you're most proud of your Yemenite culture is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And also the food.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Your favorite dishes, and there's so much food, I know, but...
Well, you want to know something? The Yemenite people's food it's everything based on kemach. You know that. Yeah. Either if it's jachnun or kubane or melawach or levivot, zalabia, everything is based on kemach. But it's same lady with different clothes. You know how it is.
I miss it so much.
I know.
I think of all the things I miss from Israel, I miss the jachnun is definitely in the top 5.
Well, now it's very famous over there. Now you can buy it everywhere.
Yeah, but it's not like from the Kerem.
No, Kerem is famous for that.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It used to be in the Kerem, if you remember, was a restaurant by name Shimon.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he had such a soups, the soups that he made.
Do you know?
Regel and
Do you know the restaurant from Nissim? It was really close to there.
which one?
Nissim. It was like a masala shel Nissim Ozari.
Oh, better.
Yeah.
My
That family adopted me when I moved to
really?
Israel. Those are
my son-in-law. He eats there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in
was
their
very
apartment
thin.
that they own.
Very nice people.
Yeah.
They're great.
I missed that family. They were really good to me, and their food is so good. So, do you have any last important thoughts on Yemenite Jews or Mizrahi Jews? Any last reflections that you want to share and preserve? This is a good time to.
Like what?
Just anything, if there's anything that you have to say about being a Yemenite Jew, something even that you would want to tell your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren about your heritage and where you come from and what's important about it.
But being a Yemenite Jew?
Yeah.
Well, just like you said, the culture is so important. Very, very important. And I think we have to pass it, kids, grandchildren, and so on. Just the culture, and you know the culture. You don't have to repeat that.
Okay, I think that's it. Are there any other stories you want to share? Any last little memories?
I mean, I have a lot of stories, but
you can talk if you want. It's okay. There's time for I think one more story or two more stories even. And if not, that's okay too.
Okay, we'll leave it some other time.
Okay.